I haven't gone a single day since Trump was elected that I haven't heard the usual talking points from the left and the right about the problem of illegal immigration. I'm sure you're in the same boat. But I think I can lay out some novel criticisms about our current immigration system that you haven't heard and explain why I don't necessarily think the wall will solve all of our problems, but it might be a necessary first step. The usual criticisms of illegal immigration are that they reduce the bargaining power of low-wage native workers, they take advantage of welfare programs and overburden our healthcare system. Drug smugglers, identity thieves, violent criminals can be imprisoned in the U.S., deported back to Central or South America, but walk right back into the country at will. These are all real problems, but these are often weighed as being acceptable by the left because of the benefits that illegal immigrants provide. You've heard it all before. They do the jobs Americans don't want to do. They just want a better life. How could you be so unempathetic to turn away these pathetic people, or worse yet, treat them like criminals? And do we really want to be the kind of country that views these unfortunates as a burden? If you argue too vociferously for border security, don't you feel people's hackles go up, their opinion of you changing to that of someone with a racist or xenophobic worldview? But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the costs and benefit of illegal immigration on those questions cancel each other out. The biggest problem on the horizon is how these immigrants vote once they settle into the U.S. In 2018, Latinos made up an estimated 11% of the electorate, and they are increasing yearly. 69% of all Latinos claim to identify or lean towards the Democratic Party compared to 20% who affiliated with the Republican Party. Well, no wonder when you consider how the media constantly insinuates that Republicans are racist against Latinos that they don't vote for them. Trump calls them criminals, rapists, and says that some he assumes are nice people. When American citizen Latinos hear these things, it's no wonder they feel like half the country discounts their contributions, and they feel less comfortable about trying to help family living outside the U.S. try to immigrate. The counter-argument is, yes, crime increases when illegal immigration increases. This point doesn't get made often enough. If you allow 1 million illegal immigrants in, and 1 out of the million commits a murder, that's hundreds at least of thousands of dollars in court fees, cost of imprisonment, the lost economic contribution of the murdered person, limits on the financial ability of the murdered person's family to raise themselves into a higher economic bracket, etc. So the fact that illegals commit, by some cockamamie math, less crimes than native citizens is irrelevant. It's also just not true if you include nonviolent crimes for both groups. How do I know this? Because every illegal immigrant is breaking the law every time they overstay their visa or cross the border illegally, use fraudulent social security cards to work, receive welfare assistance, or vote. Any crime by an illegal raises the ambient level of crime and costs the U.S. taxpayer dearly. Every year now, Mexicans are also sending about $20 billion home to family outside of the U.S., which never gets talked about. But let's for a moment put all of that aside, just talk about the voting habits of the demographics at play here. Unfortunately, nearly all ethnic groups other than non-Hispanic Caucasians tend to block vote for the Democrats. Allowing legal immigrants from Mexico and not stemming the illegal immigrant population will inherently lead to a majority population of Democrat voters. In some states like California, it's as easy to become a voter as to get a driver's license and then just not check a box stating that you're not a legal citizen. And then the polling locations legally can't ask you if you are a citizen. This is voter fraud. Liberals who are obsessed with Russian meddling in the 2016 election will have to explain to me sometime why that's been under investigation for 2 years, but no one knows definitively how many thousands of illegal votes were actually counted. Now for a moment, let's talk about demographics and fertility rates. The U.S. population is in decline. It had a fertility rate of 1.7 in 2017. The required rate just to sustain the population is 2.1. We haven't had a 2.1 rate since 2010. Whites in 2017 were at 1.6 and Hispanics were at 2.0. So not only are we now bringing in a majority of our legal immigrants from Hispanic countries, they also tend to substantially out-reproduce the native population. And because children tend to vote the way their parents do, this again highlights the problem of looming Democrat hegemony. Some people are even arguing that in order to bolster the U.S. floundering fertility rate, we should expand immigration both legal and illegal. There is some logic here. capitalist economies are only stable when there is growth, which is somewhat tied to the number of workers, taxpayers, contributors to pension plans, etc. But again, the downside is driving down the wages of certain jobs and inevitably ushering in leftist policies that subsidize poverty and throw the country, which is already $20 trillion in debt, into a hole we can never climb out of. Look at that Looney Tunes character, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a joke now, but if you look at some of the insane things she says and are absolutely terrified that she might be the benchmark for economic liberalism in the future, then you just aren't paying attention.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.